Hey folks, building a home lab is almost a rite of passage for sysadmins, right? You get to practice with storage, networking, servers, all on an isolated lab network with no impact on production. Now, the problem is that most of us don't have massive budgets that we can take to go and buy half-rack storage devices and massive servers with lots of memory, etc., etc. Now, what are you supposed to do then when you want to build a lab environment on the cheap? Now, I've got Eric Siren with me today, and Eric and I have both built a number of home labs over the years. I've always been a big fan of the business server hand-me-downs. I can't tell you how many years I've run, 2U HP ProLiant servers in my lab, but that's just one of my lab iterations. So in this episode, Eric and I, we go through a bunch of our various iterations of lab equipment, some best practices, where you can find hardware, how to use cloud services, and lots more on today's episode of SysAdmin Weekly. Hey everyone, it's a new week. That means it's time for another episode of SysAdmin Weekly. This is your podcast by sysadmins, for sysadmins, and dedicated to all the tireless tech folks out there working in the trenches to keep our digital world spinning. As always, I'm your host, Andy Serwich, and I've got Eric with me again today. How's it going, Eric?
Hey, I'm doing good. How are you, Andy?
Doing good. We have a fun one to talk about. I find that this particular topic is an area that it has been a pastime of sysadmins for many, many years to talk about this topic. And we are, of course, talking about building a lab environment on a budget because, let's face it, we don't all have, the money to stand up SANs at our house, nor do we have the power connections to do so. I once knew a guy that literally had an EMC SAN running in his house. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, dude, what's your energy bill look like? And this was the day before, these were in the days before SSDs. So he's got like 40, 50 spinning disks in his basement, and
Well, that's interesting you bring that up because really it's a mixed bag on power usage on SSD versus spinners.
That's what I've heard. And I guess the big decider there is whether the spinning disks were the kind that were intelligent enough to spin down when they were not in use. Mm-hmm. Now, if you go back to the old days when they were just spinning all the time, then, big power difference there. Of course,
if you build a SAN, you probably don't want that unless it's also tiering SAN.
Yep.
So...
Oh man, this takes me back to the old data center storage days, worrying about fiber channel networks and/or iSCSI, and like you said, auto tiering SANs. Man, you remember Compellent? Did you ever use a Compellent SAN? That was always
I heard about them, but I did not.
Compellent was always my favorite. The SAN purists out there would be like, no, EMC is the best. I'd argue Compellent. Compellent was top notch.
So when I got into it. None of the places I worked for were not. You could get an EMC SAN at the kind of money they had to spend, but it wouldn't have been great,
Oh yeah.
So I had a NetApp, and that thing. Oh, I hate NetApp. I'm so the joke I was running at the time was like, so the hardware was, I guess, okay, but the software was terrible. And then I had to call them because I inherited the thing and I didn't know anything about it, and a drive died, and they sent a guy and said, he goes, well, I'm just going to swap the drive. I'm not going to, check health or rebuild or anything. I'm like, I don't want to do that, which sounds like this is a small thing. It's you swap a drive and replace it. I was on the phone with NetApp for almost 3 hours, and they transferred me, I want to say 15 times.
Just to swap a drive?
And I wound up in customer service twice. Like, I just want to swap a drive and rebuild it. Actually, and the dude, like I say, he did the screwdriver part. He swapped the drive. I was like, I just want to make sure the rebuild is running or whatever. I don't know. And so none of that. And then so after that, it was, I don't even know if but it was a Dell product at the time, but they didn't invent it. They bought it before they bought EMC. Who was that? Nah, it'll come to me when it doesn't matter anymore, but it was okay. And then surprisingly, though, on a budget, this one floored me. I bought a really nice, really small IBM SAN for $20,000. It accepted 24 disks. It was fiber channel only. It wouldn't do iSCSI.
Really?
And the only problem I ever had with it was it would lose time all the time. Like it did not want to do NTP. But other than that, it was a great little SAN.
Oh.
24 disks, 2.5-inch IBM. Ran like a top.
Typically IBM and cheap are not two words that go together.
Not at all. I was floored. Like, are you sure? Are you kidding? Is there like a subscription or do I got to do something crazy? And like, no, it was great. I loved it. There's a wonderful little SAN. So
it sounds like we're going to do a storage episode. I mean, like we could go all day on storage. Anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's what I always think of when I think of home labs. I think of my old buddy Pat, who was running an EMC SAN in his house. It's like, okay.
Yeah, let's talk about, it was only $20,000. And now let's talk about our home SANs. Like, I do not have $20,000 of equipment in my house.
And like my rule of thumb has been, my labs have always been in the basement, right? If I can hear it at the top of the stairs, it's a no-go.
It's too much.
It's too much. So anyway, that's what we're talking about.
Can I afford it? Like, because I'm deaf in this ear mostly. So as long as I sleep on my left side, I don't really hear anything. And I don't know if any of y'all knew this, but you get to that certain age when your body doesn't know if it wants to go up or down with the food. And then when you lay down, it may come back up.
Oh boy.
So if you turn on your left side, it's less likely to do that because of the way your guts are put together. So anyway, fun fact. So I sleep on my left, so my digestion is better, and I don't hear anything. I sleep like a baby. It's great. So the loudness of something, I'm fine.
Maybe it'd be fine for you. So I used to, and we'll get into this a little bit more, but for a while I ran a couple of hand-me-down servers from my MSP days, and I had a couple of those 1U HP Proliants. I think I had a 2U down there as well too, and those things were great for sound until you had to reboot them, and then the spans would they would spin full bore until ACPI kicks in, right? And then they start spinning down. But anyway, so that's what we're talking about today, folks. We are talking about building a home lab environment on the cheap. And that's the tough part, is because you can't always do it on the cheap, but we're sure as hell going to try in this episode. So, but before we get to that, we have some of our opening segments to get to here. So first off, I have to make sure I get all my plugs in here, right? So you can find all the information on the show at www.sysadminweekly.com. We've got links to all the various channels that the show's available out there. We also have a link to the newsletter, which is at newsletter.sysadminweekly.com. I have a quick update on the newsletter. When I set out to create the newsletter, it was intended as a complement to the show, right? The show is SysAdmin Weekly. This is our core piece of content. What I didn't want to have happen with the newsletter is it just become another dump of links every week, right? Because nobody wants that in their inbox. So the podcast is going to stay weekly because that's the main part of our show here is the podcast, right? I'm moving the newsletter to bi-weekly though, because that'll give me a little bit more time to provide some more value, and it's not just another link dump sitting inside of your inbox, right? So that said, the newsletter, we will be providing that on a bi-weekly basis, again at newsletter.sysadminweekly.com, and includes like I said, a collection of useful materials, community content, and there's going to be some more long-form, useful content in there on a bi-weekly basis as well, too. So anyway, let's get to our other recurring segments here. We'll start with our News React segment. And I've got a quick one here that I'm going to start with, Eric. Unless you've been living under a rock, there's a very important end of life date coming up here on October 14th. I saw a couple of news articles over the last week as just a reminder of this. So if you are running Windows 10, Office 2016, or Office 2019, I'm talking the on-premises perpetually licensed versions of Office. If you are running any of those three pieces of software, they will officially be out of support come October 14th. Now, people always ask me, like, okay, well, what the heck am I supposed to upgrade to? Well, the Windows side is easy, right? It's, okay, go to 11, There's no other where to go, no other place to go unless you go to a different OS. On the Office side, it gets a little bit trickier, right? So if you can go to 365, not every organization can, but if you can, that's a viable option. Or there are two replacement on-premises SKUs for Office, Office LTSC 2021 and 2024. I wouldn't recommend the 2021 because you're only buying yourself like another year of support. So just go to 2024. That would be my recommendation. So
if you can, and I want to throw out here. I know a lot of sysadmins, and I'm one of them that you have one vendor out there who integrates with Office, and like we're on 2016, period. And if you want our product, you will keep 2016. I'm sorry. And 2000 and Windows 10 is going to have way more of that.
Yep.
Then so also sorry. So yeah. So and I kind of like I would love to go to 26 or 2022 or 25 or whatever they've got, but then the vendor's finally like, yeah, I guess you can do 19, fine. So you're gonna have poor folks do. I'm sorry for all of you out there. I know that's hitting you in the face. And
so I'm sure those vendors that are forcing you to stay on an unsupported version of Office are going to provide updates for said unsupported version of Office, right?
Oh, of course they won't. They will not even. No. I can't believe how much vendors can really just put us all in a bind, but yeah.
No joke. I will say that, and I can't think of any off the top of my head, of course, at this particular moment, but I do know there are third-party vendors out there that their whole thing is generating software patches for out-of-date versions of software. So
wow.
There's one that's right on the tip of my tongue. I remember hearing about it on Security Now, on that's twit.tv, a security podcast I listen to. I can't think of it. I'll think of it, 10 minutes after we finish recording this episode, and I'll include it in the show notes if I can, folks. So anyway, that's my news react item. What about you, Eric? What do you got?
All right. Well, I had one that I thought was kind of funny. And this is from Slashdot. The software engineers paid to fix vibe-coded messes. So you got all these programmers out here who go into this other mode of writing other things, and now you have to pay other programmers to fix. And it's just this thing that's such a mess, and I love it in that way of the world is going to spin the way it's going to spin, and all you can kind of do is stand there and watch it happen, So I love it in that way. Not that it's actually a good thing in any way, but this whole thing that we've all built together, and they're like, oh, we got AI and everything is coming here, and it's going to do this, and you know what? Net thing is we're just making everything so much worse, and it's awful, and yeah. And I guess since this is a sysadmin thing, there's a thing that I usually never say where I can be recorded and have it quoted and thrown at me, but we're all sysadmins here, right? And I have, well, you know what? I'm going to tone it down a lot for this group, but I really feel like software engineers cause way more problems than like per capita. It's just really, really terrible. So. But then again, this is why you and I can have a podcast and we can get paid and go out and get jobs, is because they make such bad software so regularly. It hurts a little. But now this whole vibe coding thing is now going to give us all that much more work. Isn't that amazing?
So, folks, a couple things here. First, I want to point out that it was Eric that disparaged software engineers and not me. I did
that. But I can also do that because I write a lot of software. So, that's, I may not get, well, I mean, I guess I kind of get paid for it at times, but it's, it's not my primary line of work, but I do it.
I won't disagree with you. I can't tell you how many times, hey, this thing should work, and it's not. It's broken because I don't know what the problem is. You go to the software engineer, and they're like, well, it works for me, and that's the end of their troubleshooting process, right?
Yeah.
So, anyway. Sorry if there's any software engineers listening.
Hey, you know what? Though, hopefully if they are listening to us, they're the kind of people like, I know who you're talking about, and I hate those guys too.
Hopefully.
Yeah, so we want you to win, because we do know there are tons of really excellent software developers in the world. There's just a lot of really, and it's not even so much that they're bad; it's just like they don't care.
No,
they ran.
I would. I would love to hear the software engineering side of that story. If you are a software engineer and you have thoughts on this, I've often thought about this over the years. Drop us an email at contact@sysadminweekly.com, or you could just comment on this episode either on YouTube or Spotify.
Yeah. I'm waiting for that one guy who's like, you know what, man, I'm always under these deadlines and I just produce what I can in that deadline. And yeah, it's trash, but it's the best I can do in, 2 days.
And
Like,
that's
yeah, that's fair. I get
that's
that
fair.
too.
Correct. Yep. Because we have to do that as sysadmins sometimes,
Yes,
right?
we do. You gotta
So-
you gotta get it done. We're opening that building whether you're ready or not.
That's right. That's right. And I
Yeah.
will say, we talk about the AI thing and the vibe coding thing. There's something to be said about inertia, right? And when we talk about AI, there's so much inertia now, right? That genie's never going back in the bottle, and vibe coding is here whether we want it to be or not. And so, yeah, it is interesting that we are making worse software with it, and we're now paying people to fix vibe coded software. I mean, people are getting jobs fixing that, I guess. So
Yeah.
that's a plus, right?
It is, because I did hear somebody say, like, the software development jobs have really tapered off since AI. And like, okay, so that's the first known casualty, then definitely. Because a lot of people were saying, oh, yeah, AI is going to kill our jobs. And then the job market didn't really change.
Right.
But I have heard lately that, yeah, the software development positions are dwindling. But if this vibe code thing is such a huge problem, then now it's like they're going to come right back because you're just going to be doing something different, but still development. So
No, for sure. Well, the next segment of the show that we usually open with here is our Nerd Hour segment. Now, of course, it doesn't take an hour, but it's the segment of our show where my co-host and I, we talk about the geeky, nerdy things that we've been working on, either in our day job or in our spare time. I guess I'll go first for this one as well, Eric. So people know that I work for a security vendor, and I do a lot of content for said security vendor. And quite frequently, we need some sort of screenshot or hard data from stuff that you can only find on the dark web, right? And so over the last week or two, I have had the lovely experience of having to, set up a dedicated machine and get, proper operational security set up to where I could, navigate out to some onion domains and grab some screenshots of, data dump previews. And it's an interesting world out there on the dark web. I will say that, any of these hacker forums you can go to, you can see a list of all the data dumps that are available out there. And of course, I'm looking at the list and, oh, look, there's an IRS data dump there, and there's a U.S. banking numbers data dump, and I wonder how many of these data dumps I'm contained in, and this one kind of raised some red flags with me. I'm taking some of my screenshots, I'm scrolling. Israeli Defense Ministry data dump, and I'm like, nope, I'm not touching that one. I'm staying way the
no.
And it's just like, okay, well, who knows if it was legit or not. It's the dark web, anything goes, so who knows? But it's just always interesting kind of crawling through those places for screenshots. And, well, that VM's deleted now, and I don't have to do that again for another 6 months. Hopefully, I got enough screenshots to use for our content for the near future. So anyway, that's what I've been doing in my geeky, nerdy time. How about you, Eric?
Well, you beat me. I should have gone first. Now I'm going to feel bad. Mine is, well, okay. At least I've actually been working on getting my home lab in I don't even know how to phrase it, but a lot of work with the home lab lately. So cool. We're going to jump right into the topic right out of the nerd hour. So yeah.
Very timely. So I would ask you to explain and expand, but maybe you're going to as part of our normal conversation here.
Yeah. I'm looking at like how we want to go, and like, yeah, we're going to hop right onto that.
Sounds like a plan. So I guess we ought to dive right into our main topic then, Eric?
All right, let's hit it.
Let's get started. So again, we are talking about building a home lab on the cheap. And I guess the one thing that I neglected to put in our outline here, Eric, and I should probably start with, is why? Why do you want to build a home lab at home? And I think for a lot of people, the answer is self-explanatory, but if you're just new in the industry, maybe it's not, and that's okay. You want to build a home lab. That way you can get hands-on with technologies and configurations and tools that maybe you've never used before, or this is the best part, you get to break things and then fix it, right? Some people
Yes.
like doing that.
Yes.
And the thing I always like about a lab, Eric, and maybe you're the same way, is like, okay, I come across a setting or a configuration or something, and I'm like, I wonder if I do X or if I do Y or if I change this command line switch, what happens? In a
Yes.
lab environment, I can do that and answer my question. And if it explodes into a ball of fire, that's okay, right? In production, not so much. So those are some of the reasons why I like having a lab. I don't know if you've got anything else you want to add to that.
Well, that's 100% me. I mean, I can tell you, I bring this, we're talking about vibe. My vibe is, what's this button do? That really makes bosses, "Whoa." Like, "Well, I won't know until I push the button, boss." So,
Well,
yeah, that's one of my favorite things about a home lab is nope. And I have put myself into weeks of extra work from hitting buttons. I've done that,
yep.
but then I
That's
can also walk into the office later and somebody else says, "Well, guess what I did today?" And like, aha, I got you, man. I can fix this up. We're fine.
That's right. That's the beauty of a home lab. And it's funny you mentioned the whole button pushing thing. A lot of the guys I talk with in the IT space, that's a common thing, that curiosity. And our good friend Paul Schnackenberg and I, we did an episode 10, 15 episodes ago. Now I'm gonna have to go back and look. I'll put it in the show notes, folks, where we talked about some of the core traits that make a good sysadmin. Curiosity was one of those traits.
I'm
Right?
really glad you guys said that too, because I got to tell you, as I'm going like the admins that I like working with versus the ones that I think should just go find another career, almost universally turn on that one point, whether or not they have any curiosity.
Yeah. I
Almost,
mean,
it's pretty much a diagnostic trait.
right. Yeah, you kind of have that curiosity because I feel like some of my best solutions over the years have come to be because of my curiosity, right? Like, well, I wonder if we could fix it like this or fix it like that, right?
Mhm.
I, yeah. So that
Or you
button pushing,
uncover things that just like, oh wow. And I got to tell you another. Okay, well, this isn't exactly the same thing as curiosity, but I can. And maybe we should wait a little bit. But I was thinking like frustration. The frustration of me screwing the same things up repeatedly in the home lab has gotten me to do more automation than in a production environment, if that makes sense. Because even though I may do the same thing over and over in production, it's like, but this works, and I know it works to have me manually go in and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4,
yeah,
5, but at home, I don't want to deal with it, right? Like,
yep,
so some of my best script work has come out of my home lab.
yep. I would agree with that. Where I would say that really fits with me is deployment methodologies and certain configuration choices. Because I'll deploy a cluster one way, I'll
Mhm.
go about using it over the next couple of months, and I come across things that I don't like. And usually, what I'm talking about are things that can't easily be changed after the fact, right?
Right,
I'm like, oh, I really wish I did X differently.
right.
Sometimes I'll go redeploy the whole thing just so I can make that one change, right? And over time, you end up coming up with a lot of, I don't want to say personal favorites, best practices that you just kind of develop from use of whatever software package solution you're using within your environment, right?
Right. Absolutely.
So, well, the core part of any lab is, of course, going to be hardware, right? Because we need something to run our lab stuff on, right? And when we talk about the cost factor, because again, as part of this episode, we're trying to build a lab environment on the cheap, right? Hardware is that's where most of the cost comes from, right? And where I always start is, I remember 10, 20 years ago when we didn't have any money, we're just trying to scrape enough together to pay rent and all that stuff, right? But I
Mhm.
got to learn too, right? So
Mhm.
where I always start with uh, my lab environments for folks that are, maybe building their first lab environment. And I see a lot of sysadmins kind of glaze over this in the test lab discussion. I always start here, and that is, don't underestimate the power of an old desktop with a bunch of memory in it, or an old laptop with a bunch of memory in it. And I say memory because that's the primary bottleneck you're going to run into for running virtual machines inside of a lab,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think my very first lab was, I had an old HP notebook that had 32 gigs of memory. I could run a bunch of VMs on that thing. And, using virtualization technologies, Hyper-V, you can carve off an internal vSwitch and connect a firewall VM to both that and your external network. And you can carve off a whole little lab environment completely virtualized on that laptop. And you know what? It works pretty well for your first lab, in my opinion. So that's where I always tell people to start. Eric, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that you want to add before you.
Well, we're
Yeah,
about to probably jump into how the world has gotten so much better since you and I started doing that.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
With my lap, these new little micro PCs,
Oh, yeah, those things are nice.
they're amazing. And I kind of like here, I like to deviate because I connect with obviously a lot of other experts on LinkedIn. I see what a lot of them say, and they're real set on money. You got to go get blade servers, you got to get rack mounts, you got to get real industrial stuff for your home lab, or like, how do like, all right, now what you can do, you can go out on eBay and you can get stuff. You can look government surplus, you can find
You can.
enterprise grade hardware on the cheap. But what you can't do is find new enterprise grade
Yep.
hardware on the cheap. That's not going to happen unless maybe you find somebody. All right, let's take all the illegal stuff out of it, but maybe somebody who has like some like seriously scratched and dent stuff. Actually had a case once with a blade server where they mismanufactured something and the blade would not go into the chassis. So that's probably running out there on the cheap somewhere.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you're not going to get new enterprise grade hardware cheap. But what you can do is get brand new mini PC stuff really inexpensively. And some of it's going to be kind of borderline garbage crap from some no name fly by night manufacturer. And they're going to make 20 of them and then they're going to disappear and you're never going to get parts for them or anything. But let me
Yep.
tell you, you want to get real world experience in a hurry, stuff that doesn't work right.
Oh, yep.
So you should like, oh, well, I've got this brand new Dell PowerEdge 760. Okay, great, but nothing really goes wrong with it ever, does it? Because it's enterprise grade hardware from the beginning. And like, yeah, so like, what are you actually learning from this? And if it's software, like if you're like me, I'm 90% software, 95% software actually. So the hardware is not a huge selling point for me necessarily, but some people like, especially if you're new to this whole industry, yeah, you got to know what it looks like when a network card just kind of is sick. It's easy to
Yeah.
diagnose dead things. It's really a lot worse when like, well, it kind of works sometimes, but you got to twist the mirror this way and you got to make sure it's tilted about a 5-degree angle. And, it's weird stuff like that it is really going to get you ahead in your career. So don't go cheap for your house. You're saving money and you're learning more.
Yeah. Agreed. Micro PCs have been fantastic. I don't use Raspberry Pis for virtualization, but I've got like 4 Raspberry Pis in the house. 2 of them are set up as Pi holes, which is a DNS sinkhole. We'll have to talk about that on some other episode, but they're great for little side projects and things like that.
Mhm.
But to your point, the little mini PCs you're talking about, that would be like an Intel NUC type of thing, right? Where you can surprisingly load those things up with, I think the last time I looked at them, I found one that you could throw 128 gigs of memory in it. Like
Yep.
back in the day, good luck, cramming that much into a small chassis. So,
Oh yeah, good luck affording that much RAM.
yep.
And
Exactly.
this kind of pivots to another point. Like DDR5 machines are super expensive, and DDR5 RAM is super expensive. DDR4 is fine. If you
Yeah.
can find maybe not yesterday's chip, and I know I'm kind of contradicting what I said a minute ago about you can get newer stuff, but you can also kind of teeter on the edge there.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be bleeding edge. It could be cutting edge. You know what I mean? So, and like to your point, like I'm an AMD guy through and through, and I have been since the Athlon and other things that happened in that era that probably shouldn't talk about on the air. But I'm an AMD guy, and so those are cheaper.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So I put my lab together all in $4,000, and I have a big lab, you guys. I have
Yeah. I've seen it.
four. Yep, you've seen it, and I posted on LinkedIn a long time ago. So if you look around, you can find a picture of it. But it's got four micro PCs, you call them. You know, they're about that big.
Yep. Yep.
Each one has 32 gigs of RAM in it. They do have Radeon chips, which unfortunately are not gonna work with the Hyper-V GPU P. We can talk about that at some other point. But they have 2.5 gig network adapters, which is also a fun little quirk in the networking world.
That's interesting. 2.5 gig.
Yeah,
Not gig, not 10 gig, but 2.5.
2.5, and they're odd little ducks too. You'll find, and again, this comes back to the whole, yeah, wow, that I didn't expect that. You'd never encounter that in an enterprise environment, and so I have problems because 2.5 is not, because you have 100 base, 1 gig, 10 gig, 100 gig, and all these nice little increments. 2.5 is often its own little land, and so things that you might think would work don't.
Yeah.
It's like you might buy a 10G card, like, oh, it'll negotiate down to 2.5. Probably going to negotiate down to 1. Because like only 2.5 cards support 2.5, a lot of it, so on and so forth, right? And this is kind of what I'm getting at. So those come in the NUCs. There's 2 of them in each one, and had a 2.5 gig switch. Those are weird.
Yep.
I don't think that company that I bought it from lasted more than about a month after I bought it. And I kind of looked up, like, I have some questions here on this, and people are like, you'll never get those answered. Don't even, right? But they're like, oh, but if you go here, you can reverse engineer your firmware and rewrite it. And I'm like, that's fine. I'm never going to do it, but that's fun.
Yep.
Things you're not going to do at work.
Yep. And that brings up another point about the home lab situation that I don't think we've talked about yet. And that is, sometimes you can do things with the hardware you have that you would never dream of doing in a production environment, right? So the one that comes to mind when you said, flashing custom firmware, you and I talked about this a week or two ago about something different. Those old blue Linksys routers, right? The WRT.
The 54 is the one I was thinking of at the time.
54s. I remember I got so fed up with the management on that thing back in the day. And again, this is like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, right? At the time, you could go out and flash a custom Linux image onto this thing and have that run.
I think that project is still out there, the OpenWRT project.
I think OpenWRT is still out there. It's still alive.
No, I don't think anybody remembers what the WRT is for, but that's what it came from.
Yep. And so I don't think I would ever do that in a production environment. Again, I'd never run a Linksys WRT home router in a production environment either. Yeah. But it allows you to tinker and learn, and you get to learn how firmware updates work and all kinds of fun stuff, right? So,
and you're also, if you brick something that costs $100, it's way different than bricking something that costs $20,000.
Yep, bricks the blade server chassis, right? Like,
yeah, and then it just went out of support, and that's going to cost.
You had mentioned, before we move on to our next point here, Eric, you had mentioned eBay. I will say it's amazing what you can find for old hardware out on eBay. This was years ago. I was setting up a 2-node storage spaces direct cluster in my home lab. And, I told myself I've never done direct node to node high-speed Ethernet just between 2 nodes with no switch in between. Went out to eBay and found a couple of Mellanox Connect X3s for, I don't know, $40 a piece. I mean, they're by no means were they the best NICs out on the market at that time, but it was enough.
They're good. Those are good NICs.
They are. It's tough to find the drivers for them now. I spun them up, I don't know, a year or two back, and Mellanox was bought by
NVIDIA.
Yes. Yes. And so like you really have to dig for the drivers now. I have them squirreled away on my file server somewhere just so I don't have to go dig for them again. But
Hey,
they
it's your
still
home
work.
lab. You look around, somebody's probably got some open WRT style stuff for
Oh yeah,
them. You know somebody's doing it, and they just got to
for
find
sure.
them, So, sorry.
For sure. Well, that kind of wraps up what I would want to talk about the hardware section. I mean, in summary, look at what you have currently. Can you repurpose any of it? Look at those micro PCs. I'll make sure that we throw some examples in the show notes. That way you have them out there. And if I think of anything else, I'll make sure we include that in the show notes too, because there's so much we could talk about just in terms of hardware. And I guess that reminds me of one other thing. If you, our listeners, have any particularly good home lab hardware that you really, really like that you want to share with the show, by all means, let us know. You can, again, throw a comment in the, in the comments under the YouTube version of the show or the Spotify version of the show, or you can email us at contact@sysadminweekly.com, and we'll make sure we mention that on the show in an upcoming episode for sure. So we've talked about hardware, Eric. Let's talk about software, right? Because, okay, we have to run something on this hardware, right? And, well, we know that certain software is not free, nor is it cheap in a lot of cases, right? Typically, what I found people running directly on top of hardware, usually comes down to some sort of virtualization solution or a Linux open source type solution, right? I've seen both used heavily, and I will say that, yeah, I'm a Hyper-V guy, and I've been a VMware guy in the past. I probably run more Linux in my home lab than I do anything else. My big virtualization solution right now, I'm actually using. We'll talk about it here in a second, a little bit more, but I'm actually using libvirt and KVM as my big virtualization solution in the house, and it works super well. But what do you do in terms of a home lab and you're trying to get, things up and running? Well, yeah, if you absolutely need free 100% of the time, you can always go to any of your major Linux distributions. People that watch the show know I'm a big Debian guy. Eric, I think you are too.
You brought me over. I was going to say con. Con is not the right word. You converted me. That's the word. You brought
Yep.
me over. Yep, I'm a Debian guy now.
Rock solid. Rock solid distribution. That said, Ubuntu's good. It's a good entry point if you've never run Linux before. Linux Mint is even easier to use than Ubuntu. Fedora, which is the community version of Red Hat Linux, right? That's good. I could go on and on. OpenSUSE is really good too. So any of those would be good places to start if you're looking to run Linux inside of your home lab. Now, that said, most of us are running a home lab to try and learn more about what we're doing in our enterprise environments, right? So you might be in a situation where you want to do some, some enterprise grade stuff. So Microsoft is the big one that comes to mind. Well, the nice thing that I do like that Microsoft does this is that they have a pretty long-winded evaluation license that you can use. And correct me if I'm wrong, Eric. Last I knew, it was still 120 days.
180, I think.
180.
Check that out. I'm pretty sure it's 180, and then I think you can rearm it three times.
Rearm it, yeah. Yeah. Yep. And so, I mean, you could run that thing for a super long time, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember when I was my very first lab, I was just getting started. I wasn't using this machine to make money or anything, right? Because every major manufacturer has some sort of clause in the license agreement that says you can't use eval licenses to make money. But I gamed on it while I was also learning on it. So. But yeah, it's 120 or 180. You're right.
I'm trying to look it up, and it's not even. It's weird. They're like, "Oh, come get it."
It's one of the two.
I started. I think. Anyway, you keep going. I'm going to forget the answer to that because I want to know. I thought it was 180, and
it's either or. I mean, even 120 days is a massive evaluation period, and so
and then the funny thing, like when it hits the end, it doesn't stop working. It just reboots like once an hour, so it keeps going.
And it's not like you lose your configs or anything like that, too.
No,
it just
you don't
working.
lose anything. And darn, it's rebooting every hour. License ran out. Let me go and rearm it real quick. Okay.
Right. And doing that, I mean, that's for Windows Server. That will allow you to run and learn about any Windows Server role or feature that's out there. DNS, Active Directory.
180 days.
180 days. Nice.
180 days. So if you can rearm it twice or 3 times, sorry, that's 1, 2, 3, 4 years.
Yep.
Sorry, 2 years.
Math is hard.
Years. Math is hard, especially when I'm being filmed, and then I can never do it. 1 + 1, I don't know. 2 years.
2 years. And I mean, that's a lot of time you can use to learn about.
Because what's going to happen in 2 years is we're going to get the next iteration of Windows Server.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So it's pretty much like, don't break the law here, y'all. Don't use this in production. It is illegal to do that, and you can get in a lot of trouble, and it's usually monetary trouble and big dollar signs. So let's not do that. But for a home lab and you're just playing and you're just trying to learn, that's exactly what it's for. And it's
perfect. It's perfect. And it would give you enough time to learn about all those great on-premises solutions that Eric, you and I mentioned in a previous episode where we talked about the top Microsoft skills that sysadmins need. So I'll link that in the show notes too, folks, if you need a checklist. So the other vendor I wanted to talk about here, because like I said, most sysadmins are looking to spin up some sort of virtualization solution on their lab hardware, because then they can carve off all kinds of different virtual machines and run whatever workload they want, right? VMware always comes into the conversation, and it used to be you could go out and get a free trial of you had ESXi. You could run ESXi free
forever, right? I don't think ESXi had a limit.
Right, exactly. And that was fantastic for home labs. Since Broadcom took them over, you do a search for any kind of free trial or anything like that, you find a lot of very non-committal answers. And I did find one article here, updated on 7/15/2024, Broadcom trial software and proof of concept demonstrations. Trial licenses. Here we go. And this was a facepalm moment for me. Trial licenses are available only for enterprise customers, required to have at least one site ID. And it's like, okay, come on, guys.
Yeah.
You're going to gate, okay, I could see maybe a 60-day trial, even a 30-day trial. It's at least enough time to do some things. But to gate it behind the enterprise customer designation, lunacy, insanity.
Basically, they're saying we don't want new people in our ecosystem. That is literally what they're saying to the world. We do not want new people here. And so, okay, they're going to get their wish, right? Like, we can all yell and scream and complain, but most of us aren't. We're just, okay, fine.
It's going to move on to something else.
Yeah, and I love what I do, Andy. I really love being in tech, but I'm also the guy that as soon as the paychecks stop coming in, so do I. So if it comes down to, well, we're not going to do this VMware thing anymore because it costs too much, we're going to do something else, that's what I'm going to learn.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sit here. I'm not going to die on the hill of some vendor who's like, you can't even have a trial.
Yeah.
So
I have no idea what their strategy with that choice is. I don't get it.
I have to assume it is looking at the dollars and cents, because people are out there abusing their trials. We all know that's happening.
We know that.
And most companies are like, we're just going to have to write that off as a loss because
cost of doing business.
So the cost of doing business, because on the other end of it, we're getting, more eyes on, more familiarity with. We will sell more licenses at the end of the day than we would if we didn't have this trial stuff. And they all know that. Like, look at Microsoft. Microsoft not giving stuff away for free. They don't do that. Everything they do for free has been thought out. Why are we giving this away for free? Because the ROI is, and they're giving away 2 years of Windows Server.
Yeah.
Why would they do that? Other than, guess what? You and I are sitting here right now going, you can toss Windows Server in your home lab. And then all the people out there who are hiring sysadmins are like, oh, look, we're getting all these people out who are training themselves on their dime. Isn't that great?
Right. Yeah.
you and I did a whole episode about what Broadcom has done to VMware. So I'll link that in the show notes. We probably don't have to rehash that, even though we could. You and I both feel very strongly about what's happened to VMware. So I'll link that in the show notes, folks. You can check out that previous episode. So, which ultimately brings me to the next item on my list here, and that is virtualization options. Because like I said, most sysadmins, they want to run some sort of virtualization platform. What are our options then, right? Because VMware's out. Because reasons we just talked about. So what do you have, right? You can run Hyper-V in Windows if you're just going to run a Windows operating system on this. So go out there and grab that Windows Server license that we just talked about, the eval license, throw it on a piece of hardware and spin up Hyper-V on it, right? You can do that with the eval license. Or if you really, really, really want free and you don't want to have to worry about rearming, you can always use something like Proxmox. The thing that really... I haven't used Proxmox a lot, but what I have seen that has really impressed me is it feels like vSphere. It feels just like vSphere when you're logged in and using it. So Proxmox could be an option. Or like I said, you go the open source route, kind of the libvirt/KVM route. KVM is the kernel virtual machine. That's the virtualization technology built into the Linux kernel, whereas libvirt is kind of the management plane on top of that within your operating system, right? Alternatively, I will say that you could do containerization as well. So maybe you don't need full virtual machines. Maybe you're, and I'm going to say it, maybe you're one of those software engineers that Eric was disparaging earlier in the episode.
Hey, I won the whole field, man.
Right? You could run containerization platforms as well. Docker, Podman, which is like an open source version of, Docker's, the community edition is open source, but Podman is like an open source version as well too. Don't ask me what the differences are. I'm not a massive containerization guy. I can run containers, but I can't tell you the nuances and differences between Docker and Podman. So, but you've got those options for your labs as well too. I've got one buddy that he runs like a 4-node Kubernetes cluster, and that's his home lab. And he runs everything, spins everything up in containers, right, using Kubernetes. So, anyway, anything I mentioned there, Eric, that you wanted to comment on or add?
Oh, the Podman is the first time it's ever been brought up, and I have all these questions because like Docker, I feel like Docker is like, oh, we have this open source thing, but really the point of that is to get you into the paid version. I just wondered on that level, is Podman kind of like, I don't know. I have a lot of questions, so I guess we'll all be Googling today.
Yeah, so I've used Podman a little bit. It's pretty much available in every Linux distribution repo using the built-in package manager, and you can install a web interface for it, so you can manage it via the web. And so, I mean, it's good. The little bit I've used of it, I tinkered with it when I initially set up Olama in my lab. Olama is a open source project that allows you to run large language models locally on your own hardware, which is really, really cool. And I ran the Open Web UI inside of a Podman container. The Open Web UI allows you to interface with Olama just like you do with ChatGPT on the web. It's basically the same thing. So that was my experience with Podman. It's like, oh, that's just a one-liner to get this container up and running. Sure, that looks easy. Let's do that. So again, that comes back to the whole home lab version part of the equation, right? Is like, hey, there's this thing I've never used before. Let's try it. So anyway. Well, the next area that we touch on in terms of home lab, we've talked about hardware, software, virtualization, networking. Networking is an area where you could spend very little money or you could spend a lot of money on a home lab. And I would say I'm kind of middle of the road for my home lab because I have fought with enough, consumer grade routers over the years to when I moved into my now current house, a couple of years back, I was like, you know what? I'm not doing it anymore. And I went out and bought a whole suite of Ubiquiti gear for the house, right? Ran Cat 6 into the rooms that I wanted to run it in. And yeah, so I'm running Ubiquiti in the house. So I'm kind of middle of the road, right? It's not like I went out and got a whole bunch of super expensive enterprise grade Cisco gear and used that because I'm not that crazy, just a little crazy. So But I have known friends in the space that, yeah, they were running Cisco ASAs in their home lab, and they were running Meraki devices and, Brocade stuff. And, I used to work for an MSP. The folks that listen to the show, they know I sat right next to our NetOps team. And this team, these people, slept, ate, and breathed. Boy, I can't say words right now. They lived
Those
networking,
things.
right? You get the idea, right? And so I was always hearing these stories. And the one thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned on this particular episode is if you're in a situation where maybe you're prepping for a networking certification exam, maybe like a CCNA, CCMP. Is CCMP still a thing? I don't know. It's been a long time since I looked at the Cisco certifications. But there is a open source project out there called GNS3. G is in Gary, N is in Nancy, S is in Stephen, GNS3. And I'll put a link to it in the show notes. But what is really cool about this particular solution is it allows you to emulate and simulate entire network deployments. So if you want to do, WAN simulations with BGP and multiple routes and all kinds of crazy stuff, you can do that, right? You can simulate those types of things. I've also, talked to guys that have spun up networking, like layer 3 switching type of Linux distributions on top of old hardware with a bunch of NICs in it, and they basically built their own switch using old hardware and a bunch of NICs, right? So, I mean, there's a bunch of stuff on the networking side that you could really kick the tires on as well, too. But I would say at a minimum, you need to have your router, right? Which really should be a firewall too, because that's the security guy in me. You should at least, do something to protect the home network a little bit. But you should always also have something that is layer 3 and configurable as well too, whether that's a router or a switch. And I say layer 3 because that's the routing layer of the network, right? And why I mentioned that for your home lab is having that capability allows you to start tinkering and learning about routing related stuff, right? Which you're going to want that information as a sysadmin eventually.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if you want to add anything there, Eric, before I move on to the firewall conversation.
I kind of want to hopefully bring some people's blood pressure down. I am not a networking genius, and I don't think you need to be. If you get anywhere where networking becomes a big deal, you will have a networking team.
Yep.
Or if you were like brought into some like mid-range company, you got to deal with something, then you can call a contractor, a consultant, somebody who can come out and be like, yeah, we got to get this routing thing all figured out. And they'll come in and do that for you, and then they'll leave, and then they'll just leave you with the hardware, and you can call them on a break fix or whatever you need. So I am really good at layer 2. So I get the Ethernet business pretty well. I get IP addressing within a subnet pretty well. I understand what I need to know in order to, from like when I plug in an IP address and throw it against a subnet mask, is it going to go to a router? And if it does, how's it going to do that? Now, as soon as you get into the protocols used in routing, I'm out. I'm out of the conversation. Okay. I understand, like, if you start throwing acronyms at me, I probably know what they stand for, but I don't know how they work. And I don't think it matters. It has never hurt me in any way. If you don't know how to do subnet calculations, that can hurt you as a sysadmin. Okay. So you got to get that far into it. But I personally am going to tell you, like, there are folks out there buying Cisco gear for the house, but most of those folks are network people first.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So for me, I like these. I don't really spend a lot of money on routing equipment. I will go with your firewall thing. I do like that. But I've actually started to look, I guess the OpenSense and I can't remember, there's 2 little open source things for routing.
Yep.
They
PSense
have
as well.
PSense, thank you. Those 2, now they're starting to get custom built little mini micro PCs that are custom built to run those.
Yeah.
And so they have the big thing is they've got the networking in them that you need.
Yep.
Right. So that's the kind of thing that I would go for at the house. right?
Right. And I'm not by any stretch of the imagination saying everybody has to become an expert at layer 3 routing, right?
Yeah.
You know, when
Right,
I
right. I want to make sure we've stated
Yep.
that very clearly. If you're a sysadmin because you or look, if you just want to be a sysadmin, you're like networking doesn't interest me or whatever. It doesn't really interest me either. I get it, and I'm so glad they're. I know some people. I will pick up the phone like, "Hey, man, I got this weird thing," and I know they're going to know what to do.
Yep.
Okay. I put my energy and time in other things. I only go as far on networking as I need to go, and then I stop and I let somebody else have it, and that's fine to do that. You don't need to be taking all that on, not as a
I've
single person.
Right. And I've always been fortunate enough, like I just got done saying, I sat right next to our NetOps team. So I always had that team available. What my methodology was personally, kind of my personal ethos with networking was I want to make sure that I know enough to where I can speak their language enough to hand off an issue to them, right?
Yes.
You know, I don't want to just go up to them and be like, hey, plug in cable, no worky, I,
Right. I
you know,
agree. I agree.
and
Because one thing they get so tired of is people, and I have a lot of vendors who get me in this fight all the time. Like, oh, something with your network. Like, I'm gonna call them in and they're gonna be mad because it's not their network. And they're
right?
tired of being blamed for everything and all like almost never their problem. And so I do like to know enough that if I go to them and say, "Hey, I think maybe something's wrong with the network," my networking team will listen to me because I don't do that until I'm kind of out of, I've been through some stuff. I didn't just like, oh, yeah, like you said, plug in cable, no worky. It must be you guys. You
Yep.
know, they don't appreciate that at all. And I don't blame them. They
No,
get it a lot.
they really don't. And I could sit down and I could stumble through fixing a BGP
Mm.
configuration. It's going to take me 4 times as long as one of
Oh,
those
no.
networking people, you
Yeah.
know?
And you know what? If that's what you want to do with your time, no, yeah, do that,
Yeah.
please. I
Yep.
don't feel like we have. I think the networking admin is always a little short on like really qualified people.
Oh, for sure.
Because again, like here I was complaining a minute ago about the lack of curiosity. I have no real curiosity around networking, which is why I didn't go into it, right? But if you're curious about that stuff, oh yeah, if you're good too, oh, they'd love to have you.
Oh,
So
for
yeah,
sure.
knock yourself out. I don't want to stop anybody. I just don't want you to feel like you have to know these internet rips and OSPF and all this. You don't.
Right.
You don't have to.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. So, well, the last item I have on the list, Eric, for the few minutes we've got left here is cloud. Now, cloud and cheap. Those are we talked about words that don't go together. Those are 2 other words that don't go together as well either.
No. No,
And
no.
I'm very sensitive to the fact that it is very much a cloud and SaaS world. Yes, there's some repatriation happening back to on-premise. And Eric, you and I did an episode on that a couple months back. I'll put that in the show notes too, folks. But we have to, as sysadmins, at least have some level of familiarity with cloud services. And I do have to give some credit to the big 3 here, right? Azure, AWS, Google Compute. They do a pretty good job of both offering, free trials up to a certain dollar amount. Like Azure, last I checked, was $200. You do $200 worth of services for free. But all 3 of them also have a number of services that are just plain free to use. So,
Mhm.
for example, again, Azure's the one that I'm most familiar with. But Azure Web Services, the entry grade version of Azure Web Services is free. So you can at least get in and do some things. And, if you want to try some paid stuff, you can. If you sign up for an Azure trial, don't spin up an M series VM and forget to turn it off because 20 minutes will go by and your $200 will be gone, right?
Mm.
If you're not familiar with M series VMs in Azure, they stand for monster. That's what M means in that situation. They're just massive virtual machines, right? Anyway, but I will say that all 3 of them offer some free tiers that you can tinker with, and I would encourage that, right? The only thing I would say to watch out for, if you want to take advantage of like that $200 free in Azure credit, you do have to give them your credit card. And the first thing I would have you go out and learn and teach yourself is how to set up cost restrictions, right? So once your subscription reaches a certain number, turn everything off. Everything is turned off, right? excuse me, go teach yourself how to do that, because that's a good practice to have in general, because I can't tell you in my MSP days how many times we'd come across customers and they look at their Azure bill. Boy, we're spending $20,000 a month on Azure. How could this be? How did this happen? And oh, by the way, those 4 virtual machines you have sitting over there, they are doing literally nothing, and they've been running for 8 months. I've seen it so many times. So you have to keep track of all that stuff, and it's a good skill to have in today's cloud world, right?
Yes. What have I got? Where is it? What's running? What's off? What's costing?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I guess if it's
Exactly.
coming out of your pocket, you'll be a whole lot more attentive. So,
Oh, yes, very much so. Very much so. The other thing I will say, because this is the reality in not so much the SMB space, but more the SME and the enterprise world, work on those hybrid scenarios, right? So I know a lot of organizations, they still have on-premise Active Directory, and they have it paired up with Entra in the cloud, right? Actually go through and set that up yourself, from scratch, because,
yeah.
how many...
Yeah, stand it up, tear it down.
Yep.
That's the other part I think a lot of people miss out on is the tear down, destroy it, rebuild it, find out what's wrong with it. There's going to be some tech you're going to come to hate because it shouldn't do this.
Yep.
Right.
How many... I was going to say, how many services, Eric, have you come across throughout your career that were already deployed when you got there, and you never actually witnessed or had to do the setup yourself? Quite a few,
Too many. Yeah, too many. And then you don't know how to do it. And
exactly.
maybe it matters, maybe it doesn't. But what I really think kind of slapped me in the face once I really got going and as an administrator was how few things you can just set up data exe, next, finish. Very
Right.
few things in the enterprise do that, and the ones that do are almost always awful. And then you have to spend days of, why does this do this, right? So,
Right. Good times. So that would be my recommendation on the cloud side, right? You'll get some money, but if you want to go beyond that 200, you're going to have to come up with options. I will say that Microsoft Learn has some labs that you can run through, but they are very, very narrow on what that particular lab is talking about. So if you're doing a lab about virtual machines, it may not let you go over and tinker with, Azure SQL, PaaS instances, right? It won't generally allow you to do that. So...
And yeah, unfortunately, that was, from what I've heard, part of that was they used to be better. I think we all know that. And then, well, many of us know that they used to be better, but all these people were figuring out how to abuse them to run crypto machines, crypto mining. And so they were using, and that got there. So the tighter it gets, it's because somebody figured out how to break into it and turn it into a crypto miner. So thanks for that, y'all. That was great. And those people are not listening to me, so I shouldn't, but
one bad apple spoils the bunch, right?
They sure do. So here we are. Sorry that your experience isn't better, all of you legitimate people. So, but yeah.
What I would like to do, I keep meaning to do this, Eric, but I'm sure there are some partners out there for cloud services. Again, I don't know that. I'm theorizing that there are that make it easier to train on the cloud. I'm going to have to do a look around for that. And if I find any folks, I'll be sure to mention them on the show here. So,
yeah, who's that big outlet? I'm sure they do. Well, I can't say that because I haven't seen it firsthand. Oh, now I'm upset. There's a big name in online training, and I would bet money they have something. I can't think of their names right now.
We'll dig some up, and if we find anything, we'll put them in the show notes.
Put them in the show notes. There you go.
For sure. Well, Eric, we're just past our hour mark here, so we should probably let folks get back to their day. But as always, my friend, thanks for coming and sharing your knowledge here. It's always good talking to you.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. And folks, thank you for being part of this community and watching the show. We appreciate you guys, and hopefully you found some value in today's episode. Again, if you want to talk to any of us here on the show, you can always email us at contact@sysadminweekly.com. You can comment on our YouTube videos. You can comment on the Spotify episodes. Lots of way to get a hold of us. So we love reading comments and feedback and all that type of stuff. So be sure to reach out to us. Also, check out that bi-weekly newsletter, newsletter.sysadminweekly.com. The next edition is coming this coming week. Well, as of this recording, we're recording this on September 14th. So up by the time you're listening to this, the episode I just mentioned, the edition of the newsletter I just mentioned is probably already been published. If not, something terrible happened to me. So
Let's hope not. Don't put that in the universe, man.
I know, right? I know that, right? So anyway, appreciate you folks. Thanks for spending some time with us. I'll let you get back to your day. Hope to see you next week for another episode of SysAdmin Weekly. Stay safe out there.